Good evening. Welcome to the Mayor and City Council meeting for the month of September. Welcome back to City Hall. After a short break last week, I'd like to ask Councilwoman Fuller to lead us in the pledge.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Thank you, Joe.
Thank you, Councilwoman. Everyone in council is present and accounted for. Mr. Gullo is not joining us this evening. He was taken away to another municipality. We're going to start off with the approval of the minutes, the corrected version of August 7th, and then the presented August 12th minutes. I'll be seeking a motion to approve.
So moved.
And do I have a second?
Second.
It's been moved and seconded to approve the corrected minutes of August 7th and the presented minutes of August 12th. Is there any discussion? Any additional corrections? Hearing nothing, all in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
All opposed say nay. They are approved. I'd like to ask the council if they have any conflicts with anything on the agenda this evening.
No, sir.
All right, thank you. Tonight, up for adoption, we have Ordinance 08-2019. That's a budget amendment for fiscal year 2019. We discussed it very briefly Wednesday night. Do I have a motion to approve Ordinance 08-2019?
So moved.
And do I have a second?
Second.
All right, do we have any discussion? All right, hearing none, all those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
And those opposed say nay. Thank you. Next, we have Ordinance 09-2019. It's a fiscal year 2020 budget amendment. Do I have a motion to approve?
So moved.
And a second.
Second.
All right, it's been moved and seconded to approve fiscal year 2020 budget amendment, Ordinance 09-2019. Is there any discussion? All right, all in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
And those opposed say nay. Oh, very good. Our monthly water allocation, Resolution 2019-11. Do I have a motion?
So moved.
And do we have a second?
Second.
It's been moved and seconded to approve the water allocation for September 2019, Resolution 2019-11. Is there any discussion? Very good. All in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
All opposed say nay. Thank you very much. Mr. Wyprecht, do you have anything to add for your report from Wednesday?
Nothing since Wednesday, thank you.
All right, thank you, sir. Are there any questions from Mr. Wyprecht regarding city manager report or the department reports? Very good. Mr. Gullo gave me nothing to add to his legal report. Mr. Wyprecht, did he give anything to you? Very good. If you do have questions for him, feel free to contact him individually. Moving into old business, we have the capital improvement program for council input regarding Parks and Rec. What we're seeking tonight is guidance more than anything. No vote necessarily, but is there any discussion regarding the Parks and Rec capital improvement program from council?
There's something I'd like to add. I know after Wednesday's meeting, I did speak to Mr. Wyprecht about this, but I feel like that's an appropriate point to kind of bring up the making pet-appropriate parks more pet-friendly. So, adding in the waste paper and items of that nature, I feel like could be incorporated into those plans.
Are you talking about a specific park or?
Roberts Mill, and then, just any park where we allow pets.
Okay, currently that's Roberts Mill, I believe. Okay, although we do have dog shows at Memorial Park.
I suspect that Bollinger Park, I don't think we have established a specific set of rules for that park, but I think that is one where we may allow pets as well.
Okay. I think suffice it to say, any park that provides a walking trail would be pet friendly. I know there were talks of a Flickinger Park walking trail in the future at some point. I don't know that that would qualify as a capital program, though.
Sure.
The expense of that is fairly low, is that correct?
Right.
Right.
Okay.
Certainly something we can keep in mind as we develop those projects going forward, though.
Okay.
Very much so worth talking about, though.
Oh, absolutely.
And I have a couple of, I guess you could call them maybe general questions about it. 'Cause, I went home and I did some thinking about it over the weekend, and I guess the first general question I have really is this, we're talking about things that we would like to see prioritized, correct? And I know that times will change and costs will change. And I guess my first question really is, how recent are the prices that are quoted in the project? I mean, is it within the last year, last couple of years, or?
I'd say 2 years at best.
Okay.
So and particularly with this list, since this was a much larger list than Public Works, where we started last time, I'd like to get the Parks and Rec Advisory Board's input as far as prioritizing, and then work to update those estimates, so that maybe we can get a little more up-to-date numbers. And I suspect there will be consensus from both groups to spruce up the pavilions rather than replacing them. So those numbers will change dramatically, and we'll probably just get an in-house materials and labor estimate, because we do, as you know, have a contractor on staff that we can utilize to do that type of work. So those numbers should drop substantially.
Right.
So what I'd like to do is bring Parks and Rec back next month for some further discussion after the advisory board gets a chance to weigh in, and after we can update some numbers on the newly prioritized projects.
Okay. I'll reiterate from Wednesday night. The two things that I would like to see is the walking trail at Roberts Mill. I think needs to be a higher priority than what it shows, and to look at the fencing around all the sports fields for the safety issues. Councilman Bigliotti, go ahead.
I'm sorry, I didn't mean to interrupt.
Nope, not at all.
Off of that note, as you'll remember, I also thought that Roberts Mill should be a priority. But I'd also made the suggestion that maybe we could look into everything being paved maybe at the same time to see if that would, ameliorate or change the cost any. But on that note, when we get to the point where we say, okay, well, we're ready now to move ahead with, say, Project X or Project Y, will we do a re-examination of the cost at that time? Or is that going to be something that we're going to pre-budget, and then when the time comes, we look at it again within the purview of the budget itself?
If I can make the assumption that we will get through all the departments and get the capital improvement plan approved, during those individual departmental reviews, we will update the estimates as we go along. So that being said, we would use those estimates to develop our annual budgets for those projects that are going to be included in each year's budget. And then when we get to actually bidding the project, it'll be a matter of whether the bids come back in within the budget constraints or not. So on the assumption that we can get current engineering estimates, I think that's what we would use to actually budget for each year going forward as we tackle those projects year by year.
Okay, no, that makes perfect sense, because I was just curious, again, given the idea about doing all the repaving at Roberts Mill at, one point, just curious as to how the cost might fluctuate given the time and then, the nearness of what was going to happen, so.
Well, when we put that out for bid, we can put out several things and have them itemize on their bid, and then we say, okay, the combination of these three is acceptable within, or we just choose one and go with that. Just because they bid it doesn't mean we have to do all those projects.
And we can, right, and we could possibly, if we have, say, a number of projects that are essentially paving projects, we could, if they if the consensus is to kind of bundle those into a single year, we could bid them as a single project with different phases. We could bid them as having optional components where somebody might want to do one project but not the other, which, using the paving example, I think it's pretty likely that a contractor would want to bid on as many as they could and, mobilize their equipment to Taneytown once and get as much work as they could. But there's a couple different ways that we could do it.
And so if we, I'll just, use a perfect example. Like I was looking at the, I think it was, what page was it? I'm sorry, just give me a second. Whatever the page, page 24, the storage building at Taneytown High School Park, right? So I just, as an example, I'm looking at something like that, and I'm seeing that the total estimated project cost is, $71,000, but if by the time we decided to go ahead with that, let's say that, I don't know, like I was at Home Depot one day and I found that there was a much cheaper version of what we wanted to do. If I was to bring that up, say, at the time, could we discuss, the projected costs of that? Like, for example, instead of saying, 71,000 is going to be the limit, we might say 50 or 40 is the limit instead. So it's something that we'd be able to talk about at the time, correct?
I think yes, we certainly could do that when it's time to
Okay.
tackle each project.
Yep, just curious. And that's it for me. Thank you.
All right. Anyone else have any comments?
I do.
All
Jim, you're proposing the storage for out of Taneytown High School Park, the same size building as this, what is that, Roberts Mill?
At Roberts Mill, yes.
You know about that one-car garage? Is that the building you're talking about?
It's, I think, bigger than that, but not by a whole lot.
Okay. So, I mean, $71,000 seems like a lot. I don't understand preliminary design and engineering. That's $3,800. I'm not pointing this at you, I'm just pointing at the process. And then final design, in bid documents, $5,000, $8,000, into a shed. There's a lot of money to be saved here.
Well, personally speaking, I don't know how dependable many of these numbers are, considering the Roberts Mill Park walking trail and that storage building have the exact same estimated project cost. I think there are just some very rough numbers put in here that once we actually get into it, get serious about it, and get some engineering done, we'll have a much better idea of what it is.
And that storage building seems to be a sticking point for a lot of folks. I've heard quite a few comments on that one. So I did ask Bob Mitchell to go back and take a look at that Roberts Mill Park storage building, and that was actually $48,000 for the construction of the building. I don't know the total project number on that, but I'm sure it will depend largely upon the details of that building. If it's just going to be essentially a pole building with a concrete floor, that perhaps the city comes back later and builds shelving units or dividers in it or something like that to accommodate different program areas within the building, we could certainly realize some savings there. Potentially, we could even make an attempt to reuse the drawings from the building that we have in Roberts Mill Park and save some engineering and design money. If we're happy with that building, could we just put that same building in another park? So there are certainly things that we can discuss as we move along through here. Again, my hope is just to kind of prioritize things at this point and know which projects we really want to delve into and get some more solid numbers. I realize these numbers that have been compiled before I stepped in are probably engineering estimates, and I suspect are kind of not worst case scenario numbers, but they probably include everything that you
They're probably
typically
padded, yeah.
could spend. And we may be able to, I'm sure we can cut some of these lines down or
Yeah.
out.
I think the key tonight is for us to look at the projects individually, not necessarily the costs, and see what the priority of the projects are.
Okay, and I have one more question. For the resurfacing of the park, or the path around the pond, are we talking about the whole thing or just correcting what's failed?
The whole thing needs to be done. I believe that's the circumference of.
And there may be some sections that really should be pulled up and rerouted a little bit
Right.
because of the proximity to the pond itself. I think just replicating what we have now in certain areas is just, inviting repairs.
Right.
So I think there are some sections where we'll need to, have a little more distance between the path and the pond, and some also areas that we know lay rather wet, and we may want to investigate the boardwalk idea or something suggested for some of those sections as well.
Thank you for getting all this together for us, Jim. Thank you for.
Thanks, Jim.
Yeah, getting us the information.
Any other questions or comments from the council?
Before we move on, just one quick thing.
Yes, sir.
Wednesday night, I was asked for a timeline on the tennis courts, and I followed up with the Parks Director, and at this point, he's thinking most likely next spring. So it's
Okay.
not likely to be done before winter. So,
Okay. Very good. So you're going to have this to the Parks Advisory Board for Wednesday night's meeting. If council has anything additional they would like to be presented to them, you can provide it to Councilman Hale as the liaison, and he can present that to them. My peripheral, I saw that.
Very good, Brad.
All right. Moving on to code enforcement legal action. I went into detail with Jay a bit Wednesday night regarding that, as to whether the council was interested in pursuing legal action on the property. I think it's still on the agenda, so we can go ahead and say 502 Chestnut Court is the property in question, affecting the neighbors due to the cat urine odor. Is there any motion from council wanting to take steps legally or otherwise with this property?
This has been lingering for, I don't know how many years.
Quite a number, yes.
And I think it's time we do something.
Okay. Would you like that to be your motion, ma'am?
Yes,
All
to
right.
take legal action.
Do we have a second?
Second.
All right, it is moved and seconded to proceed with legal action on 502 Chestnut Court. Is there any discussion from council?
So Jay was saying Wednesday night, and I assume this will be the case, but it's not like we vote on this and then tomorrow we're trying to take the occupants to court. It's the sense that it's an expedited rehash of previous processes, and then obviously.
It's empowering Jay to go through multiple steps,
Right.
ultimately, being the worst case scenario of actually going to court with it.
Okay.
Essentially directing him that he has the authority to take legal action, whatever it takes to
Okay.
remedy the situation. Is that correct?
yes, and what we would hope to achieve with Jay's involvement would be development of an abatement agreement that the homeowner would agree to and sign, so that in the event the problem is not resolved, then we can pursue it as more of a breach of contract type of a process than trying to get the court to order the abatement. We'd like to have them agree to it and then be able to essentially hold them to that agreement. So that would be ideal if we can work that out just between the city and the homeowner and
Right.
get something in writing that they agree to do. Steps 1 through 5, within a certain time frame, things like that. So,
Right.
and those of you who have been on for a while may recall that we did that several years ago with kind of a junkyard property. And there were some extensions involved because of the season and so on, but ultimately, he did clean the property up. It has relapsed a bit, but not nearly to the extent that it was before. But that's the type of solution that we hope to achieve without actually having to go to court with it.
And I assume that for whatever reason, if the occupant does not agree to an abatement, there is a contingency for that.
That would be when we would probably need to seek a court-ordered abatement.
Okay.
Any additional comments from council? All in favor of empowering Jay and Mr. Wyprick to pursue legal action on 502 Chestnut Court signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Those opposed say nay. All right. Mr. Wypeck, if you'll contact Mr. Gullo and begin that process as you see fit. Moving into discussion of property acquisition, the Dunbar Building. We received an appraisal in the binders describing the condition of the building as well as an appraised price on it. Keep in mind this is considered attorney-client privilege, so be mindful of what you do share. But I'm seeking a motion whether we wish to pursue or put it to bed.
I will.
Go ahead.
No, please, Diane.
I'd like to make a motion that we do not pursue the Dunbar building.
I will second that.
There is a second. It has been moved and seconded that we do not pursue the property acquisition of the Dunbar Building. Is there any discussion from council? All in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Those opposed say nay. All right, thank you. New business, we have our monthly financial report. I'll seek a motion to approve.
So moved.
And do we have a second?
Second.
It's been moved and seconded to approve the monthly financial report. Is there any discussion? All right, all in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
And those opposed say nay. Right. Similarly, we have the accounts payables. I'll be seeking a motion to approve.
So moved.
Do we have a second?
Second.
It has been moved and seconded to approve the accounts payables. Any discussion from the council? All in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
And those opposed say nay. Thank you very much. Next, we have the fire company vehicle donation. If you recall from Wednesday night, the police department has retired 2 vehicles that the fire department has shown an interest in and is hoping that the city is willing to donate 1 or both vehicles to the fire department. I'll seek a motion to whatever the council wishes.
I make a motion that we donate both requested vehicles.
All right, it's been moved to donate both. Do I have a second?
Second.
All right, is there any discussion accordingly? All right, all in favor of donating both retired police vehicles to the fire department signify by saying aye.
Aye.
And those opposed say nay. Very good, thank you, council. I know they will be very appreciative. Moving into leave time payout. This is regarding, Wednesday night was brought to us that the police department, being short-staffed, has not been able to take the time off that they would desire that they have earned. And Chief Etzler has asked that we instead pay out at the end of the year whatever has not been used. They'll be able to carry over the 80 hours that they typically do. Anything above that would be paid out. Just a reminder that the figure in the memo from Chief Etzler is not correct. That is high. It's going to go down as the year progresses. By the end of the year, it will be lower than that. We won't know the actual amount until end of the year, if you want to know it then. Otherwise, it'll be in the budget wrap-up. We also propose Wednesday night that we apply the same to Mr. Wyprecht because of the extra duties being acting city manager in addition to planning and zoning. He has accrued a significant amount of time with all the hours that he's put in, so it was asked of council to consider that as well. Is there a motion to approve one or both of those?
I make a motion to approve both.
All right, do we have a second?
Second.
All right, is there any discussion? All right, it has been moved and seconded to leave time payout for both the police department and Mr. Wyprecht as applicable. All in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
And those opposed say nay. Very good. Lastly, Mr. Wyprecht asked for direction, possibly to develop an RFP for the water tank rehabilitation maintenance program. Is that correct?
Yes, and the reason I'm bringing this before you essentially is just because we had budgeted money in the current fiscal year to do the elevated water tower, the rehabilitation for that project. And by going in this direction, we may not be spending that amount this fiscal year, with the opportunity to perhaps amortize that rehabilitation cost over 3 years. So if we did not have this as a capital project this year, we probably would just be developing this and getting the okay to go out to bid something. But since we've got it in the budget for this year, it could delay the project a bit. And it is a different approach than what we were expecting when we passed the budget. So,
Okay, do we have a motion to direct staff to pursue the RFP?
So moved.
And do we have a second?
Second.
It's been moved and seconded to direct staff to develop an RFP for the water tank rehabilitation. Is there any comments or questions from council? Very good. All in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
And those opposed say nay. All right, thank you, council. We're just going to slide right into council.
Mr. Mayor, one-
Excuse me. New business, yes?
I guess sort of, Wednesday night I had brought up a citizen concern about donation bins being used as dump sites, and I mentioned that to Mr. Weeprecht. And I just wanted to make a note that I wanted to continue to follow up on that. If you had any new information, and if not, that's okay, but I wanted to stay on that.
I do not at this point.
But if
I did get your email with the list of the complaint areas, so.
And if you need any help, I'm more than happy to assist. So. And then that's it for me.
All right. Thank you, Councilman. Is there anything else for new business before we move on? All right. Very good. Council member reports. We'll begin with Councilman Haynes. What do you have to report to us, sir?
I have nothing new public works related. Again, I do just want to take the time to commend our department on doing the work that they did in light of the recent incident that befell City Hall. They do a thankless job, and they do a great job. In addition to that, the CCRC will be meeting this Thursday. In regards to, if you remember, Mr. Mayor, the email that you and Jay sent me regarding franchise fees and the changes with the FCC, I did speak to Mr. Mark Ripper about that. He is the chair of the CCRC. He said he's been well aware of that. It's not something that's going to impact us too much, and I'll have the opportunity to discuss it at length Thursday night.
Okay. And that also came up at the legislative committee meeting last week regarding the impact that that may have. Councilman Hale, do you have anything for us this evening?
Just a little bit more. Harvest Fest is October the 5th from 11 to 3. It's also going to event dogs down at the park, Tales of Taneytown. And Brad, what's the tournament that's down there that weekend?
October 5th and 6th is the Armed Forces Zombie Apocalypse Baseball Tournament. It's a fall baseball tournament.
Be a lot of people down there trying to just check out a game or two. That's all, sir.
Thank you very much. Mayor Pro Tem Foster, what do you have for us this evening?
On the economic development front, on Friday the 13th, the speaker for the business breakfast will be Leslie Simmons from Carroll County Hospital. From the governor's office, Deputy Secretary Jimmy Rhee of Small, Minority, and Women Business Affairs has requested to come to Taneytown for a visit and speak to our small business owners. That date is still to be determined. On that same front, Harmony Audrey, the owner of Firehouse Pottery, received the governor's citation for outstanding small business. Nancy and I attended that ceremony. The Boys and Girls Club announced at the networking breakfast that they'll be at Northwest Middle School beginning in October for 2 days a week from 3 till 6. And this program was made possible through a grant. Nancy and the city manager met with the Heart of Civil War Heritage staff to find a location for a panel in the downtown areas. 2 locations were addressed. Do you have anything more to add to that?
No, it's probably a year or more out before we see anything there, but even as historians, the gentleman from the Heart of the Civil War Heritage area referred to our existing plaques down by Memorial Park as a bit of a snooze. So they thought we could provide something a little more engaging for folks.
Okay, thank you, Jim. October 1st to the 31st is the Invasion of the Pumpkin People contest, sponsored by Main Street. The 26th is Nightmare on Main Street with we're going to have a sidewalk parade. Okay, that's going to be Friday, October 25th. And they're going to have a sidewalk parade with the kids along with their parents. It was too much of a deal to pull together a big Main Street parade this year, so just logistically impossible. So they're already started on that for next year, where we'll have the big parade. November 16th is the elf hunt. And December 7th is the Christmas tree lighting in Memorial Park, not the police station. That's it.
All right, thank you, ma'am. Councilman Vigliotti, do you have anything for us this evening?
Yep, a couple of things, and if I could just very briefly say also the Nightmare on Main Street, when it ends up in the park, there'll be like a little celebration and party and costume contest and everything as well too. So
Good.
So for the police report from the month of August 2019, the total dispatched or generated calls for service numbered 417. The total number of citations issued at the state, city, and repair order level were 94. The total number of adult arrests were 22. The total number of juvenile arrests were 1. And the total number of warnings issued were 49. In terms of good news, Corporal Schultz completed the First Line Supervisor School during the month of August. This is a 6-day course required by MPCTC and designed to prepare officers for their supervisory duties within a department. In terms of community outreach, Corporal Schultz and Patrolman First Class Sacadalis attended the Maryland Summerfest on August 24th, held at the Carroll County Farm Museum. Now, the report obviously is a little short this month given what happened within the last week. So on August 30th, the Taneytown Police Department rapidly responded to the vehicle strike on City Hall and quickly subdued the alleged suspect. Because the legal situation remains in process, there's going to be no real further comment on that at this time. However, the Taneytown Police Department and the Taneytown Volunteer Fire Company and Emergency Response are to be congratulated and thanked for their professional and efficient handling of the scene that night. That thanks is also extended to our Public Works Department, Utilities crews, our IT department, and all of our city staff for their assistance as well. The city overall responded very well to what occurred and is continuing to respond to something that really is unprecedented in the history of Taneytown. And we also want to thank the Taneytown Volunteer Fire Company for allowing us to have our Wednesday meeting at their hall last week. And then as a final note, which is not exactly police related, but something I've been familiar with since its inception a couple of years ago, the evening of October 4th, Land of Fear will be doing their seasonal opening. Of course, I will be there for that, and I encourage the rest of council to come. Mayor, you as well. It's one of those really awesome and unique things that that the town sort of is able to host in our identity. And it is becoming a really well-known attraction, and it's continuing to help put us on the map. So if anybody's available on the evening of October 4th, let me know, and let's go get scared. And that's it for me tonight.
All right, thank you, Councilman. Councilwoman Fuller, do you have anything for us this evening?
Nothing in addition to the report that's in the packet, but on the tree lighting, we are going to try to make it a more of an all-evening afternoon affair. There's going to be Christmas movies being played, food offered. They were going to do some bigger displays, contests. There's sponsorship opportunities for private and business. And we are actually, depending on how cold it is, looking into a snowmaking machine. So planning to spend more time down there at the Christmas tree lighting than the typical hour. And there'll be more details to follow.
All right, thank you, Councilwoman. Like I say, I was honored to swear in Chief Etzler last month after the last meeting. I think he's done a great job in his first month officially as a permanent chief. The department's doing well. Councilman Vigliotti spoke about the incident. The teamwork of everyone involved was tremendous, and I thank everyone again for that, just as I did Wednesday night. Last month, I was able to join the Parks and Rec Advisory Board of doing a tour of all the city parks, which was a very nice evening. A lot of them were able to identify areas of parks that they weren't as familiar with and kind of see what improvements could be made, and a better understanding of when people come to their board, what they're more or less complaining about or talking about. It was a very nice evening, and I thank them for having me join them. Last week, Mayor Pro Tem Foster and I attended the MML Legislative Committee meeting, the first of the season. Just discussed the possible priorities for us to look at again this week, so you'll hear more information as that comes up. I do want to offer thoughts and prayers to Mayor Perry Jones of Union Bridge. His son passed away a couple days ago, and we do want to offer our thoughts and prayers to him and his family for that. It's a very sad time. We have, of course, this Friday, the business breakfast, as well as Senator Justin Reedy is coming to town, kind of tour the city, get an idea of what we're looking for from the state. In addition, I just got word minutes ago that FSK's homecoming parade will be in Union Bridge on September 18th. The council is invited if they wish to be a part of it. If you can let me know as soon as possible so we can organize transportation. But it is in Union Bridge. It starts at 5:30. That's on September 18th. I'll send an email out later this evening to remind you and to ask for RSVP for that. It would be great if we could be represented.
Is that Friday, September 18th?
No, that would be Wednesday.
Wednesday, okay, thank you.
Yep. We also have for council, the MML chapter dinner is on September 19th. We spoke about Harvest Fest on October 5th, and just keep in mind that in October, we're doing a combined workshop council meeting on October 7th. The MML Fall Convention will be taking place during our regular council meeting. Most of us will be in Cambridge, Maryland for that. So October 7th, if you want to come watch the show, that's the day to come watch it. Other than that, I have nothing else, so I will entertain a motion to adjourn.
So moved.
And do I have a second?
Second.
All in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
And those opposed say nay. Very good. Enjoy the evening, folks.